I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Riana Milne. Riana is a life, love, and trauma recovery coach. She is also an author of 3 books, and I want to find out from Riana today, what is trauma? What kind of trauma do people face? And how does trauma affect our work? Join me today in my conversation with Riana Milne. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Riana Milne. Good day, young lady.
Hi, how are you? Way over across the other side of the world.
Yes, I'm jealous though. You're in Florida, and anyone
Yeah,
would like to be
beautiful
in
day.
Florida.
83 and sunny. It's kind of hard to take.
Thank you
The
for
middle
being.
of January.
I know it's here's not so bad. We had a cold streak, but now it's getting up there, and but yesterday it rained, so even when it was warm, it was rainy. So I use that as
Okay.
an excuse to stay in the house, which I probably could have just put my gum boots on, as they say.
Gum
Rihanna,
boots.
I never say gum boots. What am I
You-
talking about? Will you do me a favor and tell me what industry are you in, as this is why we work and giving people idea of what people do, getting to the core of what people do, but also talking
Sure.
about what you do. What industry are you in? And can you give us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, and the big general umbrella would be personal transformation and mental health, because I'm a licensed mental health counselor, a licensed certified alcohol and drug addictions counselor, a student assistance counselor, which works with students in schools all the way from kindergarten through college. But more often, I am acting as the global certified life, love, trauma recovery, and mindset coach, as well as business coach. So I do a lot of personal transformation. I am not doing the therapy model after about 17 years of doing that. I wanted to
Mhm.
go full coaching and specialize on trauma recovery and personal transformation to create that life that you really desire and to have the love that you deserve.
Rihanna, how did this all begin for you? What would have been your very first job, even as a teenager, that got you out of the house to make a dollar?
Well, my first job as a teen was really cool, other than the regular babysitting and dog sitting.
Well,
Okay.
no,
But
no, those count, right?
oh,
Because
those count. Well,
yeah, no, those
I was working
absolutely
since
count.
I was young. Yes, I was working to earn money to buy my own car. By
When
16
How
years
old
old,
were
we
you
could
when you
drive.
started to save?
Oh, right away, 12,
12
13.
years old and starting. Well, that's good, right? Because
Yeah.
some people throw some jobs off to the side, but I'm like, if any kid is listening or any parent or someone who wants to be a parent someday to tell their kids about when they can or when they can start thinking about making money and looking at the paths of people and how they've come up through the ranks of work, I think all of it is important. And some people are like, oh yeah, I used to rake leaves or mow lawns or shovel driveways, but
Yeah.
that's important.
Well, it is really important. I had my daughters working at 12 as well. I had a model and talent school and agency at that time. So one daughter helped me at the school, and their father had a Greek restaurant. So the other one worked in the Greek restaurant, being toast girl at first, and then taking cash and then waitressing. So she learned to all the management aspects of a restaurant, and Alexi learned all the managing and ins and outs of the model and talent business. Became a singer on a three-time multi-platinum degree, 3 albums. She sings at a multi-platinum level, and she was a top model for bridal and swimsuit and a host on HGTV. So she kind of just learned that business by hanging around it, and really, really excelled in it.
Well, you got her started working early.
That's right. I do
How
believe in getting your kids started working early. Very important.
so as you, for being a child or a teenager, what were the things that you were doing to save up?
Well, at 14, actually, I applied for a job that you had to be 16 years old, but I got chosen as a top promotional model for the #1 radio station in Philadelphia, which was called WFIL Radio. And the team of models were called Boss Chicks. Now we're talking the 70s, but it was the coolest job
That
for a
wouldn't
teen to
fly
have.
nowadays, I don't think.
Yeah, it was the coolest job. I made
Yeah.
$25 an hour back then, and I worked with celebrities like when John Lennon came to town. One of my favorite jobs was dancing the entire encore with Freddie Mercury of Queen the night of the opera concert in the Tower Theater of Philadelphia, because we sponsored their concert. He was actually in a pair of WFIL hot pants, that famous picture of him in red and white striped shorts. That was our uniform. So, yeah, I mean, that was a great job. I had to pick up Alice Cooper from the airport and take him to his hotel and then later to the concert. So it was a very cool job. And I got to meet a lot of celebrities, and I really started saving money then. And I did get hired at 14, and they only chose 10 girls out of 350 who applied because it was the job to have. And I didn't lie after I got chosen. I said, look, I have to tell you the truth. I'm not 16. It's like, don't tell anybody. You're like our favorite. So just get to the job on time as soon as you can. You get that license for your car so you can drive yourself. And we'll keep you, fairly, that you come into the station first versus driving directly to the job. So they worked around it.
Did you buy your first car?
Yes, I did.
What did you buy?
It was an orange Vegas station wagon.
Nice.
Like a little mini station wagon. It was bright orange, but it was my grandmother's car.
Okay.
And I bought it for $1,000. So back then, I guess that was a lot of money, but I had it.
She gave you a deal. So
all I needed was wheels. Give me wheels so I can go to my favorite job. I was so happy to be working.
You had a very interesting childhood. So as you got into high school, what were you still staying in this with the radio and the modeling?
Yes, I worked in the modeling industry. I was also a model for department stores, but I did a lot of promotional work. Peter Paul Candies was one of my big accounts. I was a Peter Paul girl, so I was on billboards and magazines and newspaper with their product. I had a custom Camaro with Peter Paul chocolates all over it in custom paint. So yes, I did that job, even came home from Penn State on weekends because it was like a $400 weekend for me if I came home and worked a gig, or a party where they wanted their top people there. And it was great because it taught me communication skills. I'm working with corporate CEOs and vice presidents. I mean, very important people that were spending a lot of money. Disney was one of our big accounts. So they had a whole Disney Halloween party, and that was a big account. So I would come in for those 3-day weekends to work a party, and I'd make $400. That was a lot of money for a kid back then.
Looking back and knowing that you were in the industry, the entertainment industry as you were you able to keep your feet on the ground? So thinking of parents maybe wanting to put their kids in the industry, or they have a child who has their own desire to get into the industry. How was it for you in that period of time of right up until high school? Were you able just to walk down the hallways and say, I need to study? Or were you like, psh, you should see what I did yesterday?
Get me out of high school and get me into the real world. Yeah. Like I wanted to work. I wanted to be out of high school. I wanted to be out of college. I graduated college early. Mm-hmm. I went for broadcast communication. So in my mind, I was going back to the radio station. They wanted me to be head of promotions. But then I met my husband and ended up moving to Erie, PA.
So you went to Penn State, did you?
Yeah, I did, for broadcast communications. So I didn't take that dream job I was really working towards, but kept in touch with the station through the years. And right out of college, I had a radio show, and I ended up working for CBS station as continuity and advertising director. So I was writing all the local ads and designing ads for the book TV Guide. So I had that job for a while. So I did go right into the industry, and certainly that job credit was big for me, working for a top radio station and celebrities and so forth. And I loved it so much. I just keep continuing my passion work. Then at 26, I opened up a model and talent agency in school myself. I actually had to appear before the Board of Education in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was funny. They said, Miss Milne, where's your team? And I thought there'd be like 4 people there to hear my presentation. There was like 40 people in a U, and I just walk in myself at 26 years old. They were expecting my attorney and my accountant. And I'm like, I'm here to answer all your questions. So, I mean, I did get passed. I became a school at 26 years old. And within 6 months, that school won the International Model and Talent of the Year award. So I had that business for 10 years. So my modeling that I started at 12 and working with the industry, that really built my confidence. So work builds confidence in kids. You definitely want them to learn those skills, to be able to communicate with other adults outside of their family, to have responsibility, to learn the value of money instead of just giving them allowance. Let them learn the value of money, what they had to work for to
Mm.
get, the value of savings, and have them have a goal, which is a great one for a teen, is their car, and to go from there.
So you said you did that till 36. So now that you're 37, what are you doing now?
I always wanted to be a counselor. It was funny. As a teenager, I read Vogue magazine,
Yeah.
Teen magazine, and Psychology Today. So I always wanted to be a counselor, but my path took me that way. And I married the college sweetheart. I was only 21. I had two daughters at 24, 25. We divorced at 26 when I was 26 because there was some fraud that he did to my family. And I said, I'm better off being on my own and making my way and running this business without any headaches or interruptions. So I made it out on my own. I ended up also needing to pay child support. But long story short, I was very successful in the industry.
So you got the short end of the stick there to have to pay child support,
Right.
but thank
And pay my mother back $200,000 that he and his father frauded from my family. Yeah. So I was better off being on my own, and I knew there was a long road ahead. Most of my time, I had 5 jobs going. And I became spiritual and started following the masters in my late teens, like Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, the Dalai Lama, Marianne Williamson, and the Course of Miracles. So I was studying these masters to keep my energy up and what I call the mindset for success intact. So there was no time for victim mentality. I had to work to support myself, my daughters, pay back my mom. And, work was joy for me, so I love being around talented people. I had from ages 5 to 75 in my talent agency, and the seniors all worked. They had a ton of jobs. I was working with photographers and ad agencies and radio stations. So I became quite successful out on my own. That was easy. And I decided one day, when my kids were settled, I would go back for my master's in psychology.
Mm.
So I did. At 37, I went for a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology and graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0 and opened up my own practice called Therapy by the Sea.
As if what you were doing was not enough.
Well, the agency I sold off, right?
Yeah.
The talent school and agency I sold off, and then I went back into school.
So you've been in this sort of line of work ever since. So what is it that you do for people now, and how did you discover your niche?
Okay. Well, I started off with my first solo practice, and it was called Inner Vision Counseling, which meant go inside and see the vision of your life and then create it. But people didn't really get that title.
Mm.
So, but I had a supervisor, and that was my first private practice. And then I changed it into Therapy by the Sea. I figured people got that. But also, while I was building my practice, I took on other jobs. Like I said, I had 5 jobs usually at the same time.
Mm.
So I was a writer. I've written 7 books. With the first one being the Model and Talent school book, the main book, which was about 250 pages illustrated. So that one I wrote by 26 years old. So I wrote 7 books. One went to #1 bestseller that I marketed for the public, which is Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. That's 400 pages. And that goes along with the one about the mindset for success, which is Live Beyond Your Dreams, from fear and doubt to personal power, purpose, and success. And that was the mindset I was teaching my models and actors to excel and achieve and go out beyond the small town of Erie, PA, to be successful models, singers, actors, dancers. So not only did my daughter do that, but many of my talent people did. And when we compete in LA, in the winter and New York City in July, and they all got picked up with big city offers. So this mindset for success I was teaching in my 20s, and they all said, Riana, you've got to write a book on this. I'm like, yeah, I will when I have time. So I finally wrote that in 2008, and then the love book afterwards. But that's when also in those years after 40, I was working in the school system, working with kids of trauma. And then I got a job from a hospital system working in the adolescent and child unit for mental health. So I was seeing kids that were suicidal or cutters, runaways, kids from foster care, just kids that were upset or from traumatic situations. And in school, I also got my...
Riana, what turned you in that direction? Because on one hand, you're with people in the entertainment industry that, although you can see the other side on the other side of the camera of people, but they're living life very well, the lights, the flashes, all of those sorts of things. But then you're moving into trauma specifically for children, which seems to be quite the opposite.
Not specifically for children.
Okay.
I always wanted to be a counselor. It was part of my dream and my journey. I had done the talent agency for 10 years. I liked it. I loved it. But I also wanted to do the counseling piece. And I found even as a school director, I was helping those who were LGBTQ coming out to their parents. So I was almost serving like a counselor using my mindset system. And I'm like, I got to go get licensed for this. I was coaching them in a lot of things to help them succeed, right? Which is personal transformation. I would take a kid that wanted to be a model with an eating disorder and get her self-esteem up and get her into health and realize that, this is not the way to be a model. That's a way to look strung out and not healthy with an eating disorder. So I was working with mental health to help people reach their dreams and have the life they desire. They're all interrelated. So then I had to, when my girls were old enough, find the time to go back to school to get the licensures. And because in psychology, it's a 3-part track. At 36 credits, you can get a master's in psychology, but not a very good job. At 60 credits, which is part 2, you have the ability to take the test to become licensed. At 92 credits, now this is in New Jersey, it might be different in different states, but at 92 credits, you can open up your own practice. So I kept taking courses, and one of them was the SAC counselor, student assistance counselor, and using psychology with kids of trauma in the schools. Another one was drug and alcohol addictions. I'm like, yeah, I'll get that license too. So I was just getting all these licenses as I was becoming educated. Which sent me to work with adolescents in a drug and alcohol rehab center as a counselor. And then also I worked at another center, which was with women from the prison system, which I called drug court. Instead of staying in prison, if they were there due to addiction, they got out, got to go to a rehab center for anywhere from 30 days to 6 months. So I was their crisis counselor. So when I look back, I was working with all these people from traumatic situations. Not that I picked it, right? And then I had not only that first marriage was traumatic for me, which we call love trauma, but I had a second marriage, and it seemed like the ideal partner. We were introduced by his school superintendent, who was going to be in the wedding. This was a school principal who had a secret life, and he got caught with porn on his computer, instantly fired, big community scandal. And I had to go in to annul that marriage. And I decided to stand up for myself as my own attorney. And then right after that, since none of my psychotherapist friends could help me understand what did he have, why did he risk everything to lose everything, I needed to figure out those answers. So that's what set me on the journey to the research that uncovered what unhealed childhood trauma does to you in life, love, and business.
And that brings you to today. And
Several years ago, I decided to close my local Delray practice, and I went global in 2017 to teach about childhood trauma. It was so important. Nobody even knew what it was. Everyone's there like, no, I don't have childhood trauma. I had a few bumps in the road. But the research shows 90% of people have at least 1 to 3 of the top 10 traumas. So I created the childhood trauma checklist, which is one of the assessments I use. and many others are now using it around the globe. And it helps easily identify for people if they had trauma. And then we take the steps to heal that, and then do the goal setting of what they want for the life that they want to create for themselves and for the type of love relationship that they deserve.
How does this trauma show up in life so people are able to start to recognize it rather than just looking? Because maybe some people look back in their childhood and can't see the trauma, but if they can see some of the symptoms now, then that might be a trigger to bring them back a little deeper.
Yes. Yes, there's a lot of different ways. There's many, many combinations that show up, but everyone that comes to me has ongoing anxiety, bouts of depression, fear-based negative thoughts. They may take a chance to go into business and then they stop, or they sabotage themselves because they're afraid, or they won't make the investment in the coach that they need because they have lack mentality. In love, it's a whole different set of things. In work, it could be that bully boss that bullies out all the employees. It could be someone who's cutthroat and super competitive because he has to win all the time. Personality traits, like in our top political official who recently needed to retire, that is unhealed childhood trauma. All those signs and symptoms of needing to be adored, no consequences to behavior, can't apologize. It comes out in different ways and in different levels of severity, depending on which of the top 10 traumas that you have and the level of severity that you had received them as a child.
Could you go through some that list, the top 10
Yeah.
list that you have?
Yeah, that's an important list.
I
For
might,
the listeners, if they
knowing
can,
knowing myself, I'm probably going to check off a lot of them.
yeah, write them down. That's what I was going to say for the listeners. Write them down, see what you have, and then I'll tell you how correlations happen afterwards. Again, as you're listening to this list, all the listeners out there, I don't want you to feel any guilt or shame, because remember, you are an innocent child in this household and things just happened around you or to you that you could not control. You were too young. And this, at this point, is not about blaming your mom and dad, because they did the best that they knew how. It
It's
is
a
shown in the
it's a really good
research.
point. Those are really good points you're making, because I think the
Yeah.
first knee-jerk reaction would be, "Oh, look what I did," or "Look what they did," and start laying blame rather than trying to find that healing.
That's right. We're trying to look at the facts behind this. And if you see that you were a child of trauma, so were your parents, and probably so were their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because the research shows it goes through at least 3 generations, if not more. It's that one person that steps up to heal it and know how to model emotionally healthy behavior, as well as be that authentically, that they stop the traumatic patterns being passed down from family to family. Okay, so the first one is if your parents had any addictions. So drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was cheating or had an affair, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism, and even social media addiction. So those addictions in your parents. Second is verbal. So if you saw any verbal fighting between mom and dad, if there was yelling and screaming at you, if they told you anything that put you down or made you feel not good enough, like, go change that outfit, hun, you look fat in that. Any things like that, which we call verbal slurs. Not getting compliments as a child, or not hearing the words, I love you. Verbal is a big one that people identify their worth and self-esteem around. What messages did you receive? Third is emotional abuse or neglect.
So
Fourth,
as we go through this list, is this mostly leaning towards the parents specifically, or is it just the first few?
no, no, it could have occurred inside or outside of the home.
Okay. Okay.
So your parents may not have yelled at you at all, but you might have had a teacher that bullied you,
Good.
called you stupid. You're stupid. Why don't you know that answer? And made you feel really embarrassed in the classroom.
Yeah.
So it's just while you're young, inside or outside of the home. It could have been a coach that put you down and said, you're no good. What's the matter with you? Those kind of messages.
So number
Okay.
3 was emotional support, did you say?
Emotional abuse and neglect.
Okay.
Number 4 is any kind of physical abuse, beatings, being beat up in or outside of the home, on the schoolyard, whatever. Rape or molestation are part of that one, number 4. Number 5 is abandonment, and there's 2 types, fault and no fault abandonment. So no fault abandonment would be if a parent happened to die early, if they have to leave to serve your country and go off to war, or if they have to travel a lot for work, and this is how they supported the family, but they weren't home a lot. Those are all no fault situations.
Would divorce be one in that too?
No, that's a fault. Okay, so a fault abandonment would be if you were never in that child's life, if you were with that parent, you divorce, that's not the fault piece. The piece then is you barely see the child after the divorce, or you say you will and you don't show up, right? So you're not as active in that child's life. You chose not to be active. And the other part under fault abandonment is emotional abandonment, where you might even be in that child's life pretty regularly, but you just don't engage. Like, let's say there's a child visitation, the father's in front of the football games all day Saturday and Sunday, the kid's in his room on his computer saying, why do I have to be here? This sucks. I just wish I was at my mom's house, because there's no engagement. So that's a fault abandonment,
So
no emotional connection.
Are they still under number 5, or those are?
Yes, that's all under abandonment. Okay, number 6 is being adopted, part of foster care, or needing to live in another person's home because your parents couldn't keep their home, or they lost their home in a mortgage crisis. So even going to live with grandma or your aunts or uncles, those are all traumatic situations. Number 7 is the one that most people identify with. That's called personal trauma. That could be any time you were bullied. You might have been an overweight child, skinny and gawky child, and called a nerd. You might have had a medical issue like asthma and couldn't be part of the popular football team or whatever, so you felt different. You could have been identified in the schools as ADHD, so you felt different. You could have been an LGBTQ student and trying to come out and be yourself, and you felt ridiculed. Or racially or culturally, you could have been different. The main school population could have been all Caucasian, and you might have been the only African-American student. So you felt different, or part of the minority. So you can see how many cases this relates to, and there's even more beyond those examples. But personal trauma, where you didn't fit in, you didn't feel good enough, you didn't feel worthy, that's a big one. Okay, trauma number 8 is around siblings. So your sibling could have bullied you. They could have been born with a medical issue that commanded more of mom's and dad's time. Or most often you perceive them to be the golden child, the favored one. So maybe they were the star athlete, or smarter than you, more handsome, more beautiful, whatever, you just felt they were favored. Trauma number 9 has 2 parts. And these parts, trauma number 9 is affecting everyone on our globe today. And part 1 is called community trauma. So this is when anything happens to the community at large. So the COVID pandemic is happening to all of us. This is a community trauma. And look how it's affecting our young people. They can't go to school. They can't play with their friends. They're afraid mom and dad, if they go to work, might die. I mean, it's very traumatic and scary for our young people. Other community traumas are mass shootings, school shootings, and massive acts by Mother Nature. Floods, fires, hurricanes, mudslides, volcanoes, anything that affects the community at large. And they're getting more and more prevalent. When I was a young girl, community trauma was not one of the top 10. Okay. The other part of trauma 9 is family trauma. So they often go hand in hand. If mom or dad lost their jobs from COVID, now the family's suffering. There might be a lot of lack messages. We don't have money to pay the bills. They might be in food lines. They might be fighting a lot at home because the money's so tight. So they often go hand in hand. Other family trauma might be growing up in a dangerous neighborhood. You could have been part of a military family where you have to move a lot. Here in the USA, our military families have to move every 2 to 4 years. That's is placing the student in a different school each time. It could be a parent that's incarcerated. So there's a lot around that family trauma as well. And trauma number 10 is mental health issues in mom or dad. The baby boomers, of which I'm part of that generation, we didn't see parents go to counseling, so we kind of have to guess. But the two most difficult ones for children to deal with is borderline personality and bipolar. So bipolar means manic depressive. Depression can show up as anger, fatigue, or checking out emotionally. And the manic phase could be like a gambling spree, a spending spree, an eating binge, just doing something in a compulsive way. Okay. Borderline personality, that's the difficult, moody parent. You never know what you're going to get, because when they're good, they're great. But when they're bad, they're really horrid and very hard to deal with. These people will explode and get angry at the littlest thing that nobody else will get mad at. So this child's often walking on eggshells, trying to please this difficult parent, and very difficult for kids to grow up with that. This is normally that client that I see that says, I can't get rid of my anxiety. It's there all the time. And that's because trauma stays stored in the brain and the body cells. And I need 4 to 6 months of intensive work with them to get it out of the unconscious, heal it, create full conscious awareness, and create that life that they really desire.
Now, Riana, everyone has one checklist, one check off the list, right?
Most people have 1 to 3.
1 to 3. So where are you getting at severe, or maybe even the average to the majority?
Okay, well, they say 90% of people have at least 1 to 3, right? So everybody's got a little something somewhere. And like I said, you hear a lot, when kids say, yeah, I was bullied, or I felt different, or I was a school nerd, they can remember those times, or they can remember some of those verbal messages. So 2 and 7 are very common. What was the question you asked me?
Well, just, where are people falling on the scale? Like I look at this, and I wish it was a math test back in school, because I would have done very well.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. If you get a lot of traumas, like 9 to 10, and the severity levels are 9 and 10, the worst on the scale is what we call the psychopath.
So the part that maybe wasn't clear to me that might be clear to other people, there's also having the check, and then there's a severity level to it as
severity level of 1 to 10. Yes. Because there could be someone that says, wow, I remember having 2 bad spankings, from my dad growing up. And it's like, well, what would you rate that? How severe was that for you? It's like, well, it only happened twice, so maybe a 3 or a 4. That's different from the young man coming home from school every day to the raging alcoholic father that would get beaten every day, cursed at and yelled at every day. That's a severity level of a 10. And usually when your parents are that difficult, you have 9 to 10 of the traumas.
Yeah.
So like I said, the psychopath is sociopathic and narcissistic, and they kill others. That's the worst on the scale. Second one down on the scale would be a sociopath. They use people for pleasure or profit or status in lifestyle.
Is that the definition of sociopath? I don't think.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the definition of sociopath. Using others for pleasure, profit, lifestyle, or status without remorse. You'll never hear them apologize. They're excellent manipulators. Verbally, they're pros. I mean, an example of the sociopath and psychopath is Hitler, talking all those people into following their ways. He was a charming speaker. And then he was also killing so many people without remorse. So, you can look through some of these people in life, but you look at their childhood traumas, and they're usually all very severe. Okay, the one under that's The next in severity level,
Mm-hmm.
lower, would be the narcissist. But there's a wide range of narcissists. There's a healthy narcissist, and they don't hurt anybody, but they may be a little self-absorbed, whether they're starting a new career or trying to get a career off the ground, and they're really into themselves at that point in time. But they do try to be emotionally there for their family or their partner, and they're not really out to cause ill will towards others. The malignant narcissist does. They're along that line of sociopathic, just like our political leader that just stepped down. You know, he was using others to fight his battles, never apologized, doesn't want to follow the rules. You know, there's all these different definitions of what the narcissist is, but that is more the malignant narcissist. And as that gets worse, it enters into sociopathy.
So wherever people find themselves on the scale, what can they do about having checked a box or finding these characteristics within themselves?
Right. Well, the good news is this can be healed and fixed if you're usually like traumas 8 or lower. Okay. I've never worked with a psychopath. I've had a few people that recognize sociopathy within themselves and they hated that. And it's like, I don't want to be this person. One of my current clients who came to me with a marital issue, blaming her when he walked in the door, it's all her. Within the second class with me, he goes, oh my God, I'm the narcissist. It's me. I need to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great. You know, you can't change what you don't understand or acknowledge. So he saw that he needed the help, and we actually broke it all down. Where did those traits come from? Where I had a very critical, demanding mother. Okay. Men that have a hard time with their moms, which we can call a mother hater, usually are very difficult and demanding and want perfectionism from their wives. And that's what he was doing. It's fascinating. I mean, the studies beyond this, but, you know, he had these critical messages. He was never good enough. He's not doing a good job. He never got complimented. He did not hear the words, I love you. So he was a very hard worker, which made him successful. And from that, he got healthy ego gratification. That's why a lot of my people are successful in business, but struggle in love. Because they work out that piece somehow. Usually in the schools, they might have a couple good teachers who are mentors, and they got A's and accolades or rewards for being a good student. So they got that ego gratification at school and said, wow, this feels good to excel. And then they become good in business. But that love piece was never healed for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly. So when you're going through this with people, what is some satisfaction or even some difficulties that you find? I could only imagine if you're talking with people with so many traumas, it weighs a toll on you, although it could be encouraging. That's why you continue your education and trying to better yourself to help them. But what is some satisfaction and some difficulty in your line of work?
The satisfaction is amazing at seeing these people, which I call get over the rainbow. They're starting at the fact that they don't know what they don't know. And I was in that position too. I didn't know why I was attracting toxic people into my life, because I was like, I'm a good mom. I'm a great lady. I'm spiritual. I work hard. I have successful businesses. Why am I getting toxic partners? I didn't get it. So that's a part of not knowing what you don't know. And then as you're learning this, I have a 150-page workbook and all this research that I teach as a coach. So they're going up the rainbow and they're learning, but they'll slip. And then they'll learn more, but they'll slip. And people say, well, why the slippage? It's because the unconscious is so strong. We are fighting a lot of normalized behaviors to change them completely within you. But by the time you get to the other side and get all this understanding and the healing around the childhood traumas first, and then you get the second part of the program, which is learning how to be an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious partner. And evolved means being your highest and your best self. So when you get that, and then you bring that into the dating or marriage arena, because I work with both singles and couples, and you're both that person for your partner, or that's what you're presenting with when you're dating, then you have successful love relationships as well. And that's when you hit the pot of gold. Your life is drama-free, debt-free, no legal issues, great relationships with your kids, fun, passionate, loving relationships with your partner. You've created the career that you love, or you're in working for someone and you love your work. You find purpose and value in that. You have great self-love. So it's a whole different way of being. And I love seeing my people get to that side. That is so satisfying for me.
What about the difficulties?
The difficult part is usually when they come to me, they're very much in high trauma. So they might have just uncovered that their husband cheated again for the third time.
Mm-hmm.
Or I had a woman come to me, my children hate me. They yell at me, they curse at me. And I'm thinking, why'd she wait so long? But there was a lot of trauma in that household before the divorce, and that's how the father treated her. So that's how the kids are treating her. So there's a lot of high anxiety. And sometimes when I get off that hour, even though I'm a peaceful person, and I know in vocal communication, if I talk calmer and slower, I get to calm them down. So I get to calm them down in the hour, but I usually leave that hour feeling pretty exhausted.
Drained, yeah.
Yeah, drained. But it's okay because it's only lasts like a week or two before they're already starting to turn the corner, because they are already right away getting techniques, strategies. I put them on vitamin therapy, meditation, reading positive books. We start interpreting the trauma, why it occurred, doing some spiritual forgiveness, reparenting, new messages. So there's a lot to teach, but I have this down to a science. I've been doing it a long time. So other than that, I love what I do. The marketing can be hard. The marketing's a grind, the coaching's great.
You mentioned forgiveness. How big is forgiveness in your lessons for people, in your advice for people, and your
Well,
suggestions?
yeah, forgiveness is one of the highest spiritual things you can do. And it is imperative because it's not really you're saying that the actions they did against you was okay, right? It wasn't okay that my husband ripped off my family 200 grand. That was not okay. But I had to have enough spiritual forgiveness to let the anger go so I could focus on the life that I wanted to create for myself and my kids. That's what became important. There's no time to be the victim, to feel sorry for myself. So that piece, like I had to say, I had to be locked behind the door, and I just need to move forward. And if I'm living in a positive mindset this day, then that creates a good day for me tomorrow and the next day, which is creating the future I want. And I always said, your success is your best revenge. So you don't dwell on the act. You can't change that sociopath who ripped you off. But what you can do is change your mindset around it, deal with it, take responsibility, and keep moving forward.
In your line of work, especially nowadays, what is a skill that you had to develop or hone so that you're better able to service your customers and clients?
One that comes to me straight of mind is I'm from Philly, right? So I'm a Philly girl. We talk really fast and with a high energy. And down in Florida, they talk really slow. So initially, that came off sounding aggressive to people. So I had to consciously be aware of what we call a vocal habit to slow down my pace when I was talking with people, so it didn't sound so aggressive. That's just one thing I can think of. Also, work balance, work-life balance. Going from a solo practice in Delray Beach, Florida to global. That was a lot of work. I was ready for it in my mind. I didn't mind sitting in this chair 14, 16, sometimes 18-hour days as I was building my online academy, creating courses, writing my books, writing my notebooks. But I did get a test of a high cholesterol reading. I'm like, okay, that's my sign. Time to work. I couldn't work out in the gyms. I didn't want to go to the gyms with COVID. So instead, I was catching up on marketing work that I wanted to get done. So I let go that exercise piece of balance in my life, which I always had. But that past year, I had to bring it into my life for 2021 again. and I'm taking more time off. But a lot of the things I wanted to accomplish and do, like I have a podcast and I have 106 shows in my podcast. So, you know, the podcast, you've got to write it, create it, do it, edit it, post it. You know, it's a lot of hours. And my goal was to reach 100. So I reached 106 and said, I'm taking a break.
Congratulations. And
Thank you.
thinking of the work, the hard work that goes into this, and you, when you were babysitting or you got into modeling at a young age, and also switching your career at least once, do you have a tip for people who are just getting into work one way or the other?
Yeah, you want to choose your passion, something that you love. Because if you love it, you don't feel begrudged that you're working every day. You love to work. Like I love my work. I always loved every job that I did. Don't be afraid to create your job. And every job I did was from scratch. I never got a loan from a bank to open the talent school and agency, to open up my therapy practice. I just did it. And if I needed more money, then I'd have job 2 or job 3. You know, so I did other work to help bring that in to get the new business off the ground. Segueing from therapy into full-time coaching. As I was writing the coaching materials, the 150-page workbook, I was still taking therapy clients, but starting to do the coaching and fine-tune it each step of the way, right? Until I could say, I'm good now. I'm ready to just go coaching full-time. And I stopped taking therapy people. So always follow your passion. Don't be afraid to change up. You don't want to be job of the year. You have to put through honest effort. I always say God helps those who help themselves. So you have to have faith it will work, but do the work. And, you know, don't be lazy about it. Be dedicated. I mean, as a single woman, I'd say, okay, I'm writing a book. I'm not going to date anyone for 6 months. And I had to be okay with that because this goal of mine was something super important to me because I wanted to get the message out. And I said, this is a best-selling book. I know it is. This is cutting edge new information. And it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And that was an important goal to me, more so than dating at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So pick the time frame that's right for you. Get into keen focus. I do meditate every day, which really does help me with my focus and my goals. And I do a goal setting program in module 2 of my program. So my people are able to set their goals and do the several steps to make each goal come together. It's interesting. I had a client today. She had a bonus session. So she just finished her program and we looked at her wheel of life, which is module 2, and looking where she is now. Like satisfaction in work, satisfaction in friendships, in money and saving goals, you know. So we had all these different things in her wheel of life, and they were all 5 to 15% in satisfaction when she started. And today she was like from 88 to 95%. Every slice of that wheel, she had gone up all. She goes, this is amazing. She goes, I look back, it's like, how was this 6 months ago? So the change is amazing. And she totally changed her career. She was a struggling online coach. She liked it, but she hated all the work that was not producing any results. And I said, you're really stressing about money. So let's settle the money thing. Let's see what else you can do. So she was also doing part-time marketing and she was writing like press releases. So I said, let's put you online in the job market and see what you can come up with in PR and marketing for a corporation. She got a job for a top real estate developer. She loves it. She's making great money. She's doing the writing and the PR and the marketing that she loves, and she's paying off all her debts, almost done. So like everything just started changing, right? You just have to kind of look outside of the box and put all that together.
Riana, I think when I'm listening to you, I have to say congratulations, right? Like you
Thank you.
came up through things in a hard way, being a single mom. My mom was a single mom, and you mentioned 5 jobs, and I always say my mom worked 3 jobs, so you're working 5 jobs. So
it's
really
pretty crazy. Yeah.
Congratulations. And I know it's not easy, just knowing what my mom had to go through, and you hear lots of stories of single moms. So thank you very much from all the children who are raised by single moms out there. Thank you
Yeah,
kindly.
let's give
Empathy,
kudos to those single parents doing this
right?
job on their own. That's
It's
right.
very difficult. And where do you place, and you have a pedigree, you've gone through university and masters and lots of certificates and licenses. Um, how do you value education, whether formal or informal, for listeners and people who are getting into work?
I highly value education. I mean, the more educated you are, the more confident you are. It does take a lot of confidence to be known, as an expert coach and get out there and talk to people all over the world about your topic. The studying never stops. And it's also good for your brain. You don't want to stop
Mm,
learning. I'm always reading more spiritual books. I'm always on classes and summits and workshops because I just might learn one piece of information that could help one of my clients. I'm always reading new research, recent research that I can bring into my articles or into my workshops, or that will help my own coaching clients. So it's really important to keep learning, keep growing. I remember Tony Robbins has a saying, if you're not growing, you're dying.
mhm.
And if you picture a plant, a little flower, and it's growing and it's coming up through the dirt, it's growing and it's blossoming and it's beautiful colors, right? Flowers. And then it stops getting watered, right? You stop watering, stop the growth. And then what happens? It just dies. It just
Yeah.
falls apart. So education should be lifelong.
Speaking of growing, where do you see your company going, or what is your goal that you have for your company, your overarching goal?
Okay. Well, my goal for 2021 is really to get to meet new podcasts and summit hosts. I think I've been on 22 interviews so far since January 1st. Get the message out that I'm a real proponent for healing childhood trauma. And my mission is to help change the way the world loves. So the more people understand that this could be holding them back to true love without control, jealousy, codependency, love addiction, people pleasing, all the
Mhm.
negativity that happens due to unhealed childhood trauma, if I can get that out there, then our world can be a loving, more kinder place. So it's really my purpose and my passion. Um, so that's what I want to do. I'm 63 and I'm
No,
looking
you're not
for,
63.
yeah, yeah.
No, you're not. You don't look a day older than 39.
Oh, you're so sweet. I always say energy is a state of mind, right? It is. It's a state of mind and your personal happiness. So I'm looking towards retirement a little bit. I mean, I've always done world travel before COVID. So just not doing as many as the marketing grind hours because I'm pretty much out there right now and clients hear me and they know where to
Mhm.
find me, on my website or my podcast. And so I'm really, the goal for this year is health, quality of life, some extra time off for either travel or the beach. I was just at the beach all weekend last weekend. It was phenomenal.
Jealous.
Of course, visiting my daughters and my grandkids. I have 5 grandchildren. So enjoying their growth and process. And that's something I think COVID has taught us all, like really enjoy
Enjoy.
life and be grateful for what you have and have faith that what you want to come to be will come.
Rihanna, is there something people may not understand about you or the work you're doing, so that if they understood this, they can have a better appreciation of the work you're bringing to the table?
Well, a lot of people just normally they hear childhood trauma and it's just that they haven't heard it before and they don't get
Hmm.
it. It's like, no, I didn't have a traumatic childhood, a few
Mm,
bumps in the road and everything was fine. But when you really look at the 10 traumas that you might have had some, and then look at mom and dad and what they grew up with. And if you're in a partnered relationship, what did your partner experience? And maybe that's why you guys are fighting or butting heads. If you can get to the bottom of this, you would feel so happy and peaceful. Get rid of any cheap drama in your life. And it's just so freeing. That's how most of my clients describe it. Like they're just so happy all the time. And for singles, when you have this, it's so easy to attract partners because you're bringing no baggage into a
mm.
relationship. It's gone. So you become a great package and you're very confident and dating is fun. It's not a scary experience. And in career, you go for it. You learn to say
Mhm.
yes to yourself, even if you had lack messages growing up. I did, but I have had 12 coaches and I've invested. I mean, my business coach was an $85,000 investment, but I needed it. I didn't know how to go from a local practice to out there globally. I wanted the expert, the best expert I could find. And it's like, I'm worth this investment. I said yes. And because I said yes, I had a 6-figure year the first year. Every year after, I'm growing. And, I needed her level of expertise.
Mm.
So don't hold yourself back, guys. Like if you have a dream for a business, invest in yourself. You're worth it. We only have one life. We only have one go round. Live large,
You've been
right?
touching on this just because the field, the industry that you're in, but it's a question that I have in that the adversity that you have faced, whether that is even younger as a child or in your marriages that didn't work out so well or some other
Uh-huh.
thing, do you have some final encouragement for people in their line of work and the adversity, whether now they're thinking they looked at your checklist or they're looking at some of these symptoms and what should they do? How should they get going? One is to contact you, but
Hmm.
also how do they put their feet on the ground tomorrow and get up and get working?
The first thing is don't be afraid to dream. What is that dream life that you desire? Second is take action. You can find me at my website, RianaMilne.com. And while you're there, there's a free ebook on this. So if you missed the childhood trauma checklist or you want to
Mhm.
see it again, that checklist is in the free ebook on the home page. Also, for my books, Live and Love Beyond Your Dreams, the first 60 pages are free. Just get that in the books section. Start there. And then I offer 4 free love tests. So if you're singles or couples, they all apply. One of them is the childhood trauma checklist, and there's a couple others in there. Take them, they're free. They're going to be eye opening. And my podcast, there's 106 free shows of lessons in life and love with Coach Riana Milne on that lessonsinlifeandlove.com website, or my YouTube channel. I think I have 250 free videos and audios there. So, start somewhere, start getting educated. And I offer a $47 1 hour meeting with me. It's a full assessment.
Mm.
It's normally $500. But because you're on this show and listening to me here, just go to my website and you can sign up for that. And we'll get to the bottom of what you're struggling with, whether it's in life, love, business, or a combination thereof. It usually is a combination. And let's get moving. The clock is ticking. It's time. Create the life you desire, have the
Mm.
love you deserve. That's what I'm all about.
Rihanna, one final question for you, and that is, why do you work?
I love it. I could not imagine just sitting around doing nothing all day. I really couldn't. It's like, I don't know how I'll retire. I really do love, I do feel it's my gift from God to help transform lives and take people out of emotional pain. I'm really good at it. I'm really blessed with all the culmination of all the education I've had over the years. Uh, it's fabulous to be able to do this work and help so many people. So I couldn't imagine not working at all. I really do love it.
Riana Milne, life, love, and trauma recovery coach. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. And go for it, guys. Go for your dreams. Don't wait. Time is short.
Hi, this is BrianVee. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, comment below. Also, you can find Why We Work with BrianVee on any podcast host, Spotify, Google, or Apple. You can also find me on Sounder FN. Please do so. It makes my dear wife happy. No, that's not true. It justifies what I'm doing with my dear wife. So please do so. Apparently it's important, and it's important to me to see that people are enjoying this. Again, find me, BrianVee, at Why We Work.